Welcome to the Jesus Storybook Bible Podcast, a place where we remind you that grace can rewrite any story, that hope shines a light through our darkest moments, and that God's love changes lives. Here's your host, New York Times bestselling author, Sally Lloyd-Jones.
Hello, I'm Sally Lloyd-Jones, author of the Jesus Storybook Bible, which tells the story of God's never stopping, never giving up, unbreaking, always and forever love. Welcome to the show. In our last episode, I told you that Jago and I have a new book. It's called Jesus, Our True Friend, Stories to Fill Your Heart with Joy. And last week I shared a little snippet of a wonderful conversation I'd had with Sir David Suchet. Well, today I'm going to read you a story from the book. Before I do, though, I wanted to share some of the heart behind the book. As you just heard me say, the title of the book is Jesus, Our True Friend, Stories to Fill Your Heart with Joy. And the clue is right there in the subtitle. We wrote this book for joy. We made this book for joy. In the book, Jago and I retell 7 stories from the Bible that we've never retold before. The stories come from the time when Jesus was on earth. Together, we hope that these stories will paint a beautiful portrait of Jesus, our rescuer and our true friend, every one of them designed to fill your heart with joy.
You know, with children, they look to us for everything, and that's appropriate. They're little. But when it comes to their devotional life, I sometimes think we forget to give children hope. And we tell them all these things about what they're supposed to be doing. And it puts the focus on them. And when you put the focus on the child, it leaves the child in despair, because that's the moral code. The moral code will always leave all of us in despair because we never can live up to it. So what I wanted to do with these stories was paint a portrait of Jesus with 7 stories to show them just how much love he has for each person he's meeting in these different stories. And it's not about them being good enough. It's about the rescuer who's come, who loves us. And that's played out in all these different stories. So I wanted it to be a book of hope for children. Something I go by is what Robert Frost said, no tears in the writer, no tears in the reader. So unless I'm moved by something deeply, I don't think I can write a story so that it moves the reader. And it could be moving the reader in laughter or crying or whatever, but it has to have that heart, and I have to start with it in my heart. I think if you can get out of the way and show the gospel in all of its beauty, then you're going to reach everyone, because the gospel is for everyone. And with a children's book, I think what's wonderful is that adults might be reading it to a child, but none of their normal defenses will be up. None of the defenses that say, no, I don't believe this, I don't believe that, I've got this against God. That won't be happening because they're reading to a child. They're also reading a picture book, which is a story told in 2 languages. And it's also lyrical language, which is the language of a parent speaking to their child. And the Bible, that's what it is. It's a father speaking to his children that he loves. So because of all those things, I just think it will reach people. And if I'm doing my job right, if I'm making sure I've distilled the stories and I've got out of the way and I've shown the beauty of the gospel, then it's the power of the gospel that's taking these stories all over the world. Your job isn't to give them all the answers, it's to raise the right questions. And if children aren't asking questions, then you're in trouble, because you want the book to open them up, not tell them what to think.
Okay, so now it's story time. And I'm going to read you the story of Mary and Martha that comes from Luke chapter 10. Perhaps you know it. If you do, then if you're like me, you'll probably identify with poor Martha. Poor thing. She's off in the kitchen, being very busy, doing everything perfectly for everyone all the time. And her sister Mary is just sitting there, listening to Jesus. As I researched the biblical text, though, I started to wonder, was perfectionism drawing Martha away from just being present, drawing her away from being with Jesus? I mean, she was off in the kitchen. Well, see what you think. One last thing, though, before I begin the story, just to say this is a picture book, and a picture book is a story told in 2 languages. So since this is a podcast and you're not able to see the pictures, you're really only getting half the story. So as we always like to tell children, I'm going to tell you, you'll have to use your imaginations. Unless, of course, you have a copy of the book in front of you, and then you can follow along and enjoy the beautiful illustrations done by my friend Jago. And by the way, I'll give you a tip. Please look at Martha's hair. The whole story could be told by just her hair. But I digress. So, without further ado, here are Mary and Martha. The story is called The 2 Sisters Jesus Loved.
Mary and Martha were 2 of Jesus' best friends. One day, Jesus and his helpers made a special trip to see them. "It's Jesus!" cried Mary. "I'll get the food," said Martha, immediately setting to work, flapping up cushions, offering everyone a seat, rushing in and out of the kitchen, making a list. In no time, she had the onions chopped, the garlic minced, and the stew on the stove. Meanwhile, Mary sat at Jesus' feet, listening to him teach about God's love. Jesus was here, and all she wanted was to be close to him. Now, this was a strange thing, because in those days, women never sat at a teacher's feet. Sitting at a teacher's feet meant you were the student, and girls weren't allowed to be students. Only boys were allowed to learn, because people back then thought that girls weren't as important as boys. But Jesus wasn't like other people. He knew girls were just as important, and so he welcomed Mary at his feet, like all his other disciples. Meanwhile, back in the kitchen, poor Martha's to-do list was getting longer and longer. Jesus was here, and she wanted everything to be perfect. All the preparations, so many things, and she kept thinking of even more things. There was dough to knead, and bread to bake, meat to grill. And what about the figs, the olives, the grapes? And don't forget the cucumbers. Oh dear. Poor Martha was starting to have a bad day. She was frantically busy and much, much too hot, and in the kitchen all the time, and Mary was just sitting there not helping her. Why wasn't she helping her? Martha could feel she was beginning to get very angry. Her anger was simmering, bubbling up, boiling over, until she couldn't help it. She stormed into the room, interrupting Jesus. "Jesus, don't you care that sister of mine has left me to do all the work? Tell her to help me." There was a horrified silence. Martha had just scolded Jesus and told him what to do, and said he didn't care. But with great tenderness and gentleness, Jesus said, "Dear Martha," and he looked at her with such kindness that her eyes filled with sudden tears. There was an ocean of love in his heart for her. "Martha, you're doing all these wonderful things for me, but the things on your list, they're making you anxious and unhappy. You're like a capsized boat being tossed along and swept away by all your worries. They're pulling you away from me. Don't let them keep you from me. Don't let anything keep you from me." Martha gulped. She'd been trying to do it all. She'd missed the most important thing of all. Jesus beckoned for Martha to come and sit close to him. "What you're carrying is too heavy for you," Jesus said. "Why don't you give me all your worries and troubles?" Jesus loved Martha. She didn't need to do anything for Jesus to love her. She didn't need to make everything perfect. She didn't need to pass any kind of test at all, because Jesus had come to free God's children from all of that forever.
I'm so glad you joined us today to hear more about Jesus, our true friend, stories to fill your heart with joy, and that you got to enjoy Storytime. And by the way, stay tuned, because next time we have a special guest. It's Jago himself. So thank you for taking the time to listen. Till next time then, cheerio.
You can get the Jesus Storybook Bible wherever books are sold. To find out more about the book and all of Sally's other books, please visit Sally, at SallyLloyd-Jones.com. And follow her on Instagram at Sally Lloyd-Jones and at Jesus_Storybook_Bible.
Before we go, don't forget, God loves you with a never stopping, never giving up, unbreaking, always and forever love. Oh, hello, it's me again, Sally. I'm just popping back briefly to say two things. The first thing is, don't forget to subscribe to the show, because that way you'll get the stories straight to your phone. And the other thing is, while we're at it, would you rate the show and leave us a review? That would be so great, because it helps other people find the show too. I really appreciate your help. Thank you.